important. That timing is an invaluable raw material in project management, that every activity is driven by time, whether it is costs, whether it is material, everything. Management timing is very important. You also talked about the scope, and then you also told us about another triangle that had the input of skills, management process, tools, and techniques. You went ahead to dive deep into what the skills element, the tools, techniques, and then the management processes. And of course, under the management processes, you said quite a lot, anything that has to do with management process, planning, scope, risk management, scheduling, everything that has to do with management with regard to the requirement of a particular project has to be considered in the course of implementing a project. And you also mentioned about the role, the need for strategic management. That is very, very important. We understand what the role strategic management plays in project management. Let me stop here.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. John. That was awesome. In fact, you've just completed the everything we did on project management last weekend. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so I will also want to remind us that this class is streamed live on YouTube. So in case you will want to join through YouTube, please, the YouTube class is also on. All right, so thank you so much. I'm going to just go back to the class and then let's see what we can do today. The essence of what I'm trying to do this morning is to try and see how we could cover the whole of project management fundamentals on or before 9 a.m. today. And I trust we can achieve that. If you know anyone that's supposed to be in this class that is not yet here, please feel free to send the person a message to join this class. Maybe the person is still enjoying a wonderful sleep. Okay, so we are looking at project management course and we're using the Project Management Book of Knowledge, 6th edition for this class. We've been able to go through this case study in the first class, so I may have to skip it for now, and then we will get to where we will begin. All right. We also dealt with some of these things that are here, but I'm going to begin from somewhere. So we started with looking at what was a project, then we looked at what project management was, and then we looked at the related endeavors of project management. I'm going to go through the slides so that we see them all together. So we defined project as a unique temporary endeavor to produce a set of deliverables within clearly specified budget, time scale, and specification, or scope, which will determine the quality. All right. So a project is a unique temporary endeavor to produce a unique set of deliverables under clearly specified budget, time scale, and specification or scope, which will determine the quality. And that is what we regard to as a triple constraint, or these three things are the things we regard to as a triple constraint. So we drew a triangle last weekend where we said project is all about understanding the scope, understanding the time, understanding the resources involved or the budget. And these are three things working hand in hand will determine the quality of the project deliverable. So in case you were not here in the first class, please feel free to draw this triple constraint. Just draw a triangle. And then on one side, you put time. On the other side, you put scope. And on the other side, you put budget. Then at the middle, you put quality. All right, we're going to look at them in depth as this class unfolds. It's also important for us to notice that the project is temporary endeavor to create unique products or services. Now, there are other definitions we would like to go through to ensure that when we keep using them in the class, they won't sound new to us. So we have the keyword endeavor, which means an enterprise or directed activity. They will have deliverable, a tangible, verifiable work product. It is a quantifiable outcome of the project, which results in a partial or full achievement of the project objectives. Example, feasibility studies, terms of reference or charter, a detailed design or working prototype. So a deliverable is what we call product. It can be called product, it can be called output, it can be called result transition, it can be called final result. All right, so whichever one you call it, the end product of a particular project phase, project task, or the whole project lifecycle, we can call that a deliverable. So that means we can have deliverable from task, we can have deliverable from project phases or milestone, and we can have deliverable from the entire project. So we don't need to finish a complete project before we could say we have a deliverable, but we could have minor deliverables that will help in the achievement of the major deliverable. Okay, so we also looked at the characteristics of project, which are derived from the definitions of what project was or what project is. So uniquely we have that project is temporary. It's not something you start and you keep running till thy kingdom come. Projects are well defined on goals. And for the fact that they are well defined on goals, that means that they are well defined on time. So there is a definite start time and there is a definite close time. Just like we just said now, we have a mini project to complete the project management foundation on or before 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., depending on where you're watching from today. All right, so that makes it temporary. Then also projects are unique. Projects are unique in the sense that they bring up new innovations, they bring up new products or new services, or they modify existing products or services to the environment. Also, projects are progressive. They are done in incremental steps. So you move from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, step 40, you get to your final stage. So it's progressive. And also it is elaborate. That's to say it's detailed. There is a definite plan that tells exactly how the project will be done. All right. Then also, there are also other characteristics of the project, like there must be an approved budget, there must be limited or projects are bounded by limited resources, and projects involve an element of risk, and projects have defined time scale. All of these are part of the unique characteristics of a project, and also projects achieve beneficial changes. All right, every project has social economic impact. All right, every project, irrespective of whether it's a service-based project or a product-based project, every project has socio-economic impact. All right, so that's to say every project has an impact to the environment. Every project. All right. Sometimes when we are doing service product, we don't bother about doing environmental impact assessment because we feel like it's only project that has to do with manufacturing, production, construction, that has to do with EIA. That is not really true. Every project has its own socio-economic impact, all right, on the environment, and that must be taken into consideration when anchoring project. Now, on trying to explain each of these characteristics, projects are temporary, which means that every project has a definite beginning and a definite end. Note, the definite end is reached when the project objective have been achieved, or when it becomes clear that the project objective will not or cannot be met, or the need for the project no longer exists and the project is terminated. In your exam, you could see a question like, when do we say project is terminated, or when do we say project is closed? Okay, so it mustn't necessarily be that you've come to the end of the project plan that you now say, okay, this project is closed. No, there are other criteria that can determine if the project will continue or will be closed. Okay, so if the objectives are met, we can close the project. If it becomes clear that the objectives cannot be met, we can also close the project. Or if we see that the need for the project no longer exists, we can also close the project. And there are quite a number of projects we see in this dimension. I used to give this example with one project in my school then. I came to school, I saw that mighty building, but I left school. That building was, nobody entered the building, nobody walked on the building. So one day I had to ask a question: why is it that this building, for 5 years was spent in this university, nobody went there, no sound, nothing? And we were told that in the project was done in the days of Babangida, and the company that was in charge of that project, they didn't do an EIA, or they didn't do an environmental impact assessment on the project, and before they began the project. So in the process, they found out that the more they built, the project was now sinking. The building was sinking inside. The building was sinking as the story buildings were rising up. The building was sinking inside. So there was a very large or great possibility that the building could sink. All right. So they had to stop the project. They stopped the project not because the objectives are no longer necessary. They stopped the project because the objectives at this moment will be disastrous, even if it is met, or even if they are met. All right. And there are so many other projects like that we see on our own sites, even on our own, in our own personal lives. They're coming to talk about the uniqueness of projects. Projects involve doing something that has not been done before. This means that the product or service is different in some distinguishing way from other products or services. This is what differentiates between projects and operations. So a project has something new to bring. It has a differentiating factor to bring. So you could look at all the different products in the market having the same features, and looking at all the different services in the market having the same features. There must be something unique about each of those products that customers would definitely want to buy into. And that brings us to the point of talking about project innovativeness, creativity, and inclusivity. And all of these are very, very important. Then also we looked at the progressively elaborate characteristic of project. By progressive, it means proceeding in steps or continuing steadily. By increment, and elaborated means worked out with care and detail or developed thoroughly. So progressive elaboration is a characteristic of a project that integrates the concept of temporary and unique. Because the product of each project is unique, the characteristics that distinguish the product or service must be progressively elaborated. All right. So we also said that projects have approved budget, projects have limited resources, and under resources we have the consumables and non-consumable resources, and which could also be committed and non-committed. So when we talk about consumable and non-consumable, it brings us to tangible and intangible resources. All right. Then when we now talk about committed and non-committed, you could have both tangible or non-tangible being committed or not committed. When do we say a project resource is committed? When that particular resource has been assigned to a project task and the task is going on, then we can say that particular resource is committed. But where the product, the resource has not been committed, will be a case where it could have actually been assigned to a task, but the task has not commenced, or perhaps it is part of the project resource and it has not been assigned to any task. So in that case, we could say that that particular resource at that moment is not committed. So let's take, for instance, in a school setting, for those of us that are teachers or lecturers, so you have a timetable that tells that from so time to so time, a particular class or course will be taken by a particular person. Now, when that time comes up and the person goes to class to teach, that particular resource, that person teaching at that moment, and every resource attributed to that class will be committed. But where the person has not been assigned to a class, or perhaps has been assigned to a class, but has not, the time for the class has not started, the person is still available to do any other thing. All right, so that is talking about the committed and non-committed dimensions of resources. Then we have the element of risk to a project, and a project has possibility of failure. Every project has the risk of either success or failure. So projects entail a level of uncertainty and therefore carry business risk. All right. And there is always something we say in project management. Projects fail from the beginning of the project, not in the middle, not in the end. Projects fail at the beginning of the project. If a project is going to fail, it fails from the beginning of the project, not at the end of the project, or not in between the project. Because with proper planning, with proper initiation, you should be able to define the goals, objectives of the project. Then with proper planning, you should be able to know strategically the relevance of the project and all of the inclusions that the project will come by with. So if the planning stage, the initiation and planning stage is not well organized, then failure at the execution stage is not necessarily caused by the execution stage. It is caused by inability to find out the basic things that need to be considered in the project. So the risk of the project failure is high at the beginning, not at the end of the project. All right. Then we've also talked about the defined scale. We've also talked about the beneficial changes that project bring. The purpose of a project typically is to improve an organization through the implementation of business changes. All right. So I said this in the first class, that the sustainability plan of every business hinges around how innovative and creative they are on the long run. And the aspect of business that manages the creativity and innovativeness of the project of the business is their project department. And that's why it is important to have organizations drive change through project management inclusions.
Hello, Mr. Panito, are you still here?
Yes, Mr. Thompson,
Mr.
I'm
Panito,
here. Sorry for that.
All right.
Yes, please. Okay, sorry for that little break. Okay, so organizations are driving changes through the inclusion of relevant projects. Okay, the inclusion of relevant projects. There is no business that can actually advance without having to run projects. If you're not running projects yearly, if you're not running projects daily, then you could be running them weekly. If you're not running them weekly, you could be running them monthly. If you're not running monthly, you could be running quarterly. If you're not running quarterly, you could be running yearly. But for every year, there must be inclusions of certain projects that must be included in your business for the purpose of bringing much more beautiful values to the customers. Now, quickly, let's look at projects versus operations. Projects versus operations. What could be the distinguishing factor between a project and an operation? What could be the distinguishing factor between a project and operation? Projects are temporary and unique, while operations are ongoing and repetitive. The objective of a project is to attain the project objective and close the project, while the objective of an operation is to sustain the business. Project ceases when the declared objectives have been attained, while operations adopt a new set of objectives and continues to work or function. So if you look at projects have much more definite, defined scope of when to start and when to close. But in operations, it is not that way. Any day an organization stops its operation, that organization has stopped existing. Okay, any day an organization stops its operation, that organization typically has stopped existing. So importantly, operations are always ongoing. All right, and what determines operation? In fact, to me, I always say that operations are just maintenance activities that are being carried out to ensure that the project deliverables keep on getting to customers. I'll repeat that again. Operations are like maintenance activities being carried out to ensure that the initial project objective keep getting to the customers. So we carry out operations to maintain the steady flow or the steady release of the project deliverables, or ensuring that the project objectives are continually met towards the customers or stakeholders involved. Now, similarities in projects and operations. They are both performed by persons constrained by limited resources, planned, executed, and controlled, and both have or both involve risk. Now, examples of projects that could be common to us, we have release of a new music album, testing and installing a piece of equipment, developing a new training program, establishing a new youth center, an event like Olympic Games, your wedding, your birthday, and any other event, manufacturing a new product, installing a new computer system, research and development programs are all examples of a project. Now, quickly, just a way of revising, what is a project management? Project management is the application of skills, tools, and management processes required to undertake a project successfully. The application of skills, tools, and management processes required to undertake a project successfully. Last week also, we were able to draw a triangle, and we said project management is simply skills, tools, and techniques, and management processes. So embedded across the three sides of the triangle. All right, so project management is accomplished through the use of the process groups as the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and control, and then closing. So we are going to also look at each of these as we continue. Now, what then is project, or what does the project management comprise? What does project management comprise? We have the skills, tools, and management process. Under the skills, we have a set of specialist knowledge and experience required to reduce project risk and increase e-success. Then under the tools, we have items used to improve the chance of a project succeeding, used as a means of achieving results. Then processes, we have series of actions bringing about a result, includes various management processes and techniques. So in simple definition, we could say project management is STP, that's application of skills, tools, and techniques, and management processes. In simple definition, we could just say this is what project management is all about. Let's look at the importance of project management. The importance of project management. In the business environment, it helps to meet business objectives, satisfy stakeholder expectations. We help us to be more predictable in the business world. They increase chances of success, deliver the right product at the right time, resolve problems and issues, respond to risks in timely manner, optimize the use of organizational resources, identify, recover or terminate falling projects or failing projects, manage constraints, example, the scope, qualities, schedule, cost, resources. Then also balance the influence of constraints on the project. For example, we have increased scope may increase the cost or the schedule. Then also help in managing the change in a better manner. All right, I also want to say something here that we have the triple constraint as the major determinant of how we can define a project. Please, I would like us to know that the triple constraints are not the only constraints to a project. I guess we understand that. The triple constraints are not, we have constraints as regarding to risk, we have constraints as regarding to human resources. We have constraints as regarding to communication. We have constraints as regarding to stakeholder involvement and all of that. So there are so many other constraints to a project, but these three major constraints are the primary constraints that other constraints can be dependent on. All right. So it's important I make that clarity here. Now, the absence of project, what will it result in? The absence of project management will result in missed deadlines, cost overruns, poor quality rework, uncontrolled expansion of the project, loss of reputation for the organization, unsatisfied stakeholders, and failure in achieving the objectives for which the project was undertaken. So when we see so many organizations running from pillar to post, trying to find a way to succeed or to stay on course, more of the challenge they have is that they lack a projectized system, they lack a projectized structure. So innovation is far from them, creativity is far from them. And should they ever delve into running a project, it becomes a seemingly impossible task. But with a good projectized system and structure in place, it's always very easy to get organizations sustainable at a long run. Now, important note, projects are a key way to create value and benefits in organizations. In today's business environment, organizational leaders need to be able to manage with tighter budgets, shorter timelines, scarcity of resources, and rapidly changing technology. The business environment is dynamic with an accelerating rate of change. To remain competitive in the world economy, companies are embracing project management to consistently deliver business value, okay, to consistently deliver business value. We will not diverge or run away from the inclusions of agility, project agility in the area where as they are, or as it has become a major driving factor to project management in organizations. Now, effective and efficient project management should be considered a strategic competency within organizations. Effective and efficient project management should be considered a strategic competency within organizations. Now, what does this mean? What this means is that it should be it should serve as a bedrock to all activities that exist in organization. And by default, what this means also is that it should be part of the compulsory knowledge that should be available to all working within an organization. All right. So for it to serve as a strategic competency within the organization, it enables organizations to tie project results to business goals, then compete more effectively in their markets, then be able to sustain the organization, and then respond to the impact of business environment changes on projects by appropriately adjusting project management plans. Okay, very, very important. Now, quickly, let's consider let's look at the related endeavors again. Like I said in the last class, there are two major areas we'll consider in the related endeavors, which are programs and portfolios. But to me personally, I get to add operations and strategic management. All right. Okay, so what then do I have here? There are certain types of endeavors that are closely related to projects. They are often a hierarchy of strategic plans, programs, projects, and sub-projects, in which a program consisting of several associated projects will contribute to the achievement of a strategic plan. Now, a program is a group of projects managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits not available from managing them individually. A program is a group of projects managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits not available from managing them individually. So a program comprises of interrelated and interdependent projects. Okay, interrelated and interdependent projects. That's what a program is. And a program contains projects that will be carried out to achieve a goal. So they are all carried, they are all being done to achieve one thing. So I gave an example the last time. I said, for instance, let's assume we are building a university, for instance, and in the university we need to build staff quarters, we need to build admin block, we need to build hospital and everything that needs to be built in. All of those things will be built, but the whole essence of building them is just for the university. So you cannot finish the hostels and say you're done with the university. No. And you cannot finish the powerhouse and say you're done. All of them must be done before you could say the project is completed. Okay, so other related endeavor will have sub-project. A sub-project or projects are often broken down into more manageable components or sub-project for easy manageability. Examples of sub-projects as plumbing and installation of electrical fittings in a construction. So sub-projects are contained in projects, while projects are contained in programs. I will repeat that again. Sub-projects are contained in projects, while projects are contained in programs. Sub-projects are contained in project. They are called sub. That's like a segment, all right? Or a major milestone that need to be taken care of. So sub-projects are contained in projects, and projects are contained in programs. And I will also say that tasks, if you want to break it down to the smallest format, then tasks are contained in sub-projects, sub-projects are contained in projects, and projects are contained in programs. All right? Very, very important. Now, quickly, let's look at the project management context. Under the project management context, we'll look at the project phases and the project lifecycle. Then we'll look at enterprise environmental factors. We'll look at organizational process assets. Then we'll look at project stakeholders. We'll look at organizational influences. Then we'll look at key general management skills. And then we'll look at socioeconomic influences on projects. Socioeconomic influences on projects. What is a project phase? A project phase is a collection of logically related activities, usually resulting in the completion of a major deliverable. Okay, so all of the things we are looking at as sub-projects can also be called phases. A phase is a segment of a project. All right, a phase is a segment of a project. So when we have project phase, or when we have a project, we group them into phases or sub-projects or milestone levels, okay, that can help in the easy management of the project. Organizations performing projects usually divide each project into several project phases to improve management control and provide links to ongoing operations. Note, the deliverables and the phases are part of a generally sequential logic to ensure proper definition of the product of the project. So in essence, a project phase is part of the logical arrangement of the entire project arrangement, okay, or is part of the breakdown of the entire project breakdown. All right. What are the characteristics of a project phase? Each project phase is marked by completion of one or more deliverables. The conclusion of a project phase is generally marked by a review of both key deliverables and project performance to date. Please, I want us to note that particular statement, that a project phase is generally marked by a review of both key deliverables and project performance to date. All right. Now, what this means is that after a phase is completed, we evaluate that particular phase and find out whether it meets the objective of that particular phase before we move to the next phase. All right. So performance evaluation occurs, or performance review occurs at the end of every phase. Okay, and that will tell us performance to date. And that will also tell us whether we should proceed to the next phase of the project or we should hold on. So it's important we understand this as part of the characteristics of our project phase, right? So this is done to determine if the project should continue into its next phase and dictate and correct errors caused effectively. All right. So if there is going to be a rework, you do that before you proceed to the next phase, and that is very, very important. So note, phase end reviews are often called phase exit, stage gates, or kill point. At the end of every phase, we have what we call the phase end review, or what we call phase exit, stage gates, or kill point. All right. Now, quickly, let's look at project lifecycle. Project lifecycle. Project lifecycle is the collection. Okay, I'm seeing a question from Jonathan Anderson. Can you please further explain kill point? Yes, I'm going to explain kill point for that. I'm going to use a diagram to explain that later. Okay, and I'm going to do that under the project lifecycle, right? Okay. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat room so that during Q&A, we'll be able to handle them. And for the ones that will be handled in class, I can easily see them and then be sure to take care of them. Project lifecycle is the collection of generally sequential project phases whose name and number are determined by the control need of the organization involved in a project. Now, if you're a project manager, you often hear things like control account, codes of account, and control account. Okay, so that brings us to scope management, all right? Scoping of project. So under scoping of project, we'll have the codes of account. The codes of account are those things like number 1, number 2, number 3, or any other code you wish to use. Any other code you wish to use to exemplify what you want to say, all right? Then the control account is the financial implication of each code of account. The control account is the financial implication of each code of account. So let's take, for instance, you want to cook food. Let's assume it's rice you want to cook, and in your list, your number 1 is buy 2 pints of rice, and that is going to be like $2, right? Let's assume $2. So the code of account is 1. The detail of the code of account is purchase of 2 pints of rice, and the control account is the $2 that will take care of the specification that has a particular code. All right, so that's important. So a project lifecycle, what it does is that it gets all of these phases together and then shows the relationship that exists from one phase to another. All right, from one phase to another. Now, project lifecycle generally defines what technical work should be done in each phase. For instance, is the work of the architect part of the definition phase or part of the execution phase? These are to be defined. Who should be involved in each phase? All of these should be defined. Now, the project lifecycle serves to define the beginning and the end of a project. Deliverables from the preceding phase are usually approved before work starts on the next phase. Note, a subsequent phase is sometimes begun prior to approval of the previous phase deliverables when the risks involved are deemed acceptable. This practice of overlapping is often called fast tracking. So when by default, we are supposed to have performance review or phase review before we go to the next project phase, right? Or go to the next project item. Now, if the risk involved in the previous or the preceding project phase is acceptable, then we can actually approve the next phase before evaluating the previous stage. And if we are doing that, that becomes fast tracking. Okay. So before we could fast track a project, it is understandable to us then, or through risk analysis, is understandable to us that the project we are fast tracking has lesser risks. Because if the risk is high and you're fast tracking, you might end up in redoing the work or having rework, okay, which could also increase the cost and the time involved in the project. Now, what are the common characteristics of project lifecycle? Cost and staffing levels are low at start and move higher towards the end. Probability of successfully completing the project is low at the beginning and higher towards the end as project continues. Stakeholder influence is high at the beginning and progressively lowers as the project continues. Now, these are some of the characteristics we see. Costing and staffing are always low at the beginning, because at the beginning, we are still initiating, we are still planning. So if you notice where costing start increasing is from execution, all right? Costing start increasing at the execution. Even staffing start increasing from the execution phase, right? Okay, so let's use this circle to explain more of all of the things we've been talking about. Remember, I said project management has 5 process groups. We have the initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and control, and closure, right? So we'll see all of that in this circle. So the question of what is a phase gate or phase exit from Mr. Jonathan. So you have phase entry. From the start, you have phase entry. At the finish, you have phase exit. So what the phase exit means is that you've completely or you successfully completed a particular phase, and then you have to move to the next phase. Okay, you've successfully completed a particular phase and you have to move to the next phase, right? So a phase exit is, or the Q point is the point where you have successfully completed a phase and you now have permission or approval to move to the next phase. Okay, that's very, very important. So this is typical to what we have in the project lifecycle.
Hello, Dr. Benito. It's like your mic is muted.
So sorry about that. Okay, so this is what we have in a project lifecycle. Now, from this lifecycle, it's very indicative that project has definite start and definite end. So you shouldn't bother about trying to make it a lifelong activity. No, project have definite start and definite end. All right. This is just a sketchy diagram of a circle. I'm going to show us another circle and how circles or how phases integrate within circles, right? As we proceed. Now, quickly, let's look at project and development life cycles. What are the different life cycles that exist? We have the predictive life cycle, we have the iterative life cycle, we have the incremental, we have the adaptive or the hybrid model life cycle. Quickly, let's look at each one. In a predictive life cycle, just as the keyword there, predict. The project scope, time, and cost are determined in the earliest phases of the life cycle. Any changes to the scope are carefully managed. Predictive life cycle may also be referred to as waterfall life cycle. So most of us could have heard of waterfalls, all right? So in waterfall life cycle or predictive life cycle, the scope, the time, and the cost are determined in the early stages of the project. So as changes come up, the early specifications that were made as to scope, time, and scope become the baseline for changes that were coming. All right. So we predetermine, or we determine scope, time, and cost at the early stages of the project. Okay. So we predict, we estimate, All right, so that's a predictive life cycle. Then remember I said it can also be called waterfalls. So if you run project environment where waterfalls is common, it is also considered as predictive life cycle. The challenge with predictive life cycle is that most often when change begin to come in, if there is no room for change or there is no much allowance for change, when changes begin to come in, becomes a case for the waterfall environment or waterfall project environment. All right. Then we have the iterative life cycle. In an iterative life cycle, the project scope is generally determined early in the project life cycle, but time and cost estimates are routinely modified as the project team's understanding of the project increases. So iterations develop the project or develop the product through a series of repeated cycles, while increments successively add to the functionality of the product. So in iterative life cycle, is like being repetitive over a particular task or repeating certain things over and over again. Now, in iterative life cycle, we have the project scope defined, but the time and costs are not defined. So you see iterative cycles being applied in agile environments. Okay, you're definite of what you want to do, but you might not be definite of the time and the scope it will take. So that means that projects are delivered in incremental stages. Okay, the project phases are delivered in incremental stages. All right. Okay, then we'll have also the adaptive life cycle. Adaptive life cycle. Adaptive life cycles are agile, iterative, or incremental. So an adaptive life cycle can be agile, it could be iterative, or it could be incremental. The detailed scope is defined and approved before the start of an iteration. Adaptive life cycles are also referred to as agile or change-driven cycles. So agile, the adaptive life cycles are much more open to change than the predictive life cycle or the waterfall life cycle. All right. So in essence, we can actually say we have just two kinds of life cycles. So I have the waterfall or the predictive life cycle, where everything as regards to scope, time, and budget are determined before at the early stages of the project, before delving into the project. Or we could talk about the agile cycles or the adaptive cycles, where we'll now talk about the agile, the iterative, or the incremental. All right. Then we'll have the hybrid life cycle. Hybrid life cycle is a combination of a predictive and adaptive life cycle. All right, predictive and adaptive life cycle. So those elements of the project that are well known or have fixed requirements follow a predictive development life cycle, and those elements that are still evolving follow an adaptive development life cycle. So this is actually where project management is trying to come to in organizations, where we'll be able to synchronize between waterfall life cycles and agile life cycles, or perhaps waterfall project management practices and the agile project management practices, synchronizing them, knowing the things that have definiteness and knowing the things that have iterative patterns or have that are susceptible to change, and then being able to manage them. What had been in practice over the years had been more of the predictive or the waterfall life cycle or waterfall project management waterfall management cycles, where businesses want to be definite of everything before the launching. But in the recent time, we are trying to create an inclusion of the waterfall with the agile, so that we can know the things that are definite and also know the things that can be modified as the project proceed or continues. Now, quickly, let's look at project lifecycle versus product lifecycle. Now, before I continue, please, I would like to be sure that everyone is following me and you are gradually following what I'm saying. Please, if you can, if you understood a little of all I've been saying since morning, please, can you type 1 in the chat room? If you understood a little of all I've been saying since morning, please, can you type 1 in the chat room? All right, thank you so much. Okay. I will also appreciate if you have questions, just put them in the chat room, and then I will take care of them as I see them. Okay. Okay, so we have the product lifecycle versus, or project lifecycle versus product lifecycle. So here now I have two things distinguishedly. So I have project lifecycle as regarding to what is involved in the project, then product lifecycle as regarding to what is involved in the business, or what is involved after the project has been delivered as a product. All right. So in the product lifecycle is a collection of projects. Yes, product lifecycle is a collection of several projects as a business oriented product. Whenever we have product lifecycle, is this we can also liken it as business lifecycle, right? So it's more of product project oriented, inclusion of several projects that will sustain the business, right? So projects are usually one of the stages in a product lifecycle and involves development stage, growth stage, maturity stage, and decline stage. So this is if you go back to what we have in the life cycle, it is also equivalent to what we have in the project life cycle. So what we have here is just a similitude of what we have in the product life cycle. So there is a development stage, there is a growth stage, there is a maturation stage, then there is a decline stage. Okay, there is a decline stage. All right. Okay, now quickly, let's look at influences on project lifecycle. What are the things that can affect the success of a project lifecycle? What are the things that can affect the success of a project lifecycle? All right, so basically we have two things there. Although when we're looking at general management, we didn't consider the different management environment. Okay, we have basically two kinds of management environment, and that also play a major role in project environment. So we have the internal environment and we have the external environment. Okay, we have the internal environment and we have the external environment. Then we have another environment also we call the task environment. That task environment has to do with the tools, the techniques, the functionalities, the procedures, and all of that. So in project management too, the general concept of a management environment also plays a role. So when we come to project management, the enterprise environmental factors comprises of the internal and the external environments of a project, while the organizational process asset has to do with the procedures, the tools and techniques, the knowledge is required, the process is required to ensure that the project is done. So the organizational process asset deals more on the technical environment or the task environment, while the enterprise environmental factors deals more with the internal and the external environment. So if you look at this clearly, like the enterprise environmental factors, the EEFs, you see that it's already divided into two. All right, the EEF is already divided into two. You have the first E and you have the second E. The first E is talking about the enterprise factors, which are internal to the organization, so it talks about the internal dimensions of project environment. Then the second E now talks about the environmental factors, which are external to the project. So we're now talking about the external environments. All right. Okay, then the organizational process asset, the OPAs, now talks about the tools, the tasks, the procedures, the systems, the methodologies, the rules and regulations that we need to carry out the project. All right. Okay, now I would like us to from this place now, because we are gradually moving to some sort of technical dimensions to the project management. So I would like us to pay attention. Okay, I would like us to pay attention and understand these areas quite well. All right. Okay. Now, if you don't understand EEF and OPA, please, I will need you to just make your comment in the chat room and I will explain it more. Now, in subsequent times, as we go to the knowledge areas, we'll be hearing repeatedly EEF, OPA, EF, OPA. So you need to understand it so that when we mention EF in a particular process group or in a particular management process, you understand why the EF is there, or why the OPA is there, or why the both are there. Okay, so it's important we understand these areas right now. Okay, so let me proceed with other sketchy definitions here. All right, so enterprise environmental factors refers to conditions not under the control of the project team that influence, constrain, or direct the project. These conditions can be internal and or external. EFs are considered as inputs to many project management processes, specifically for most planning processes. Please, let's take all of these things gradually and let's keep understanding it. Now, if you ever get to the point that your understanding start reducing, please let me know. I'm not in the ministry of I must finish the whole slides before I stop. No, I am much more comfortable if you can understand to a point that you can practice than getting to a point you can understand and practice and all of a sudden they start declining. No. Now, I want you to get something there. Enterprise environmental factors refers to conditions not under the control of the project team that influence, constrain, or direct the project. These conditions can be internal or external to the organization. Now, EFs are considered as inputs to many project management processes. Now, important statement there, especially planning processes. So these factors may enhance or constrain project management options. In addition, these factors may have a positive or negative influence on the outcome. They may have a positive or negative influence on the outcome. Now, quickly, let's look at some of the EFs internal to the organization. What are the EFs internal to the organization? We have organizational culture, structure, and governance. So examples of such will include vision, mission, values, beliefs, cultural norms, leadership style, hierarchy, and authority relationship, then organizational style, ethics, and code of conduct of an organization. These are internal to the organization. Okay. And all of these can affect a project. Don't worry, by the time we get to discussing each of these, you'll find out how culture, how structure, how governance can affect projects. Then we'll also have geographic distribution of facilities and resources. The company geographic distribution of their facilities and resources also has a major role to play. Okay, it has a major role to play. Then we have under the geographic distribution of facilities and resources, we have factory locations, virtual teams, shared systems, and cloud computing. In fact, that number 2 had become a major drive in the project system of today. Okay, as it were now, most organizations still work from home. Organizations like IPM, and I trust most consulting firms still work from home, or most service firms still work from home, because now they have virtual teams, they have computing systems or computing platforms that they can easily use to distribute information. Okay, so it's important to understand how that also is changing the project environment and changing the project structure and mechanism. Then we have infrastructure. Examples include the existing facilities, equipment, organizational telecommunication channel, information technology hardware, availability and capacity. Then we have information technology software, examples like scheduling software tools, configuration management systems, web interfaces to other online automated systems, and work authorization systems. Then resource availability like contracting and purchasing constraints, approved providers and subcontractors, and collaboration agreements. Then we have employee availability, such as existing human resource expertise, skills, competencies, and specialized knowledges. Okay, so all of these are EF that are internal to the organization. They are internal to the organization. They are internal to the organization. Okay, I'm seeing something in the chat room that said something like, I can't follow well because I came late for not getting the link on time. I wonder, this link has been shared since God knows when. So if you didn't get it on time, it means that you didn't pay attention to your emails and you didn't pay attention to the chat room. Now, please, I want to make a very sound instruction. Don't ever come to project management class late. If you come late, you miss, it will be like you're in another world completely. And I'm not joking about it. Project management is not human resource management. Like you say, each course can be taken separately, nothing happened. In project management, everything is in sequence. You move from one sequence to, if you don't come for the first sequence, you will find it difficult to understand the second sequence. If you miss lecture 1, understanding lecture 2 will be, in fact, 90% of the reason why most people drop out of project management class is that they don't understand what is happening presently where they join. And that be like, where did I miss out from? So to ensure that you're following up, if class is 6 o'clock, please make sure you are in the class by 6 a.m. If it is 2, make sure in class by 2. If it is by 6 p.m., make sure in class. If you miss any stage, it will just be sounding like magic to you. You will not even, except you have been in project trainings before or project management trainings before. But if you're new, please don't encourage yourself to ever come late to class. If you are new, don't, anything that will encourage you from coming late to class, please discourage the team from coming close to you. All right, because it's very, very important to understand this particular phase. I always sound this instruction in all of my project management classes. Okay, and it will help. Okay, so I am seeing something. He said, please explain EFs and OPAs from Wale Ayowola. Thank you so much, Wale. We are still on OPAs. And someone also said, please, you made mention about internal and external environment of the environment. Yes, the EEF comprises of the internal and external dimensions of the environment, the EEFs, all right? The E, that's enterprise, internal, environmental, external to the environment, all right? So all of that are part of the things that can affect a project, affect project management, all right? Then we have the EEF, sorry, the OPA. The OPA has to do with the knowledge available, the skills available, the procedures available, the methodologies available, the functionalities available within the project environment. Okay, so those are basically the two things involved in OPA and EF. All right, so we are now looking at EF, internal to the organization, and we've mentioned them. And let's look at the other side of the EF, external to the environment, or external to the organization rather. EFs external to the organization. The EFs external to the organization include the marketplace condition. The marketplace conditions here include competitors, market share, brand recognition, and trademarks as just few examples. All right. You cannot change the marketplace, although you can bring disruption to the marketplace. But the disruption you will bring to the marketplace is a function of how creative and how innovative your team is. No matter how innovative or creative or disruptive your business ideas or project ideas are, you'll find out that the marketplace still has constant conditions, like the constant conditions of the competitor still being there, the constant condition of competitors still dragging market share with you, irrespective of the disruption you're bringing in, is still there. Market condition of trying to gain brand recognition is still there. Then market competition of trademarks, market competition of dragging customers is still there. So the market condition is an EEF external to the organization. So it's not what the organization determines. That's what it means. it is not within the control of the organization. For the EF internal to the organization can control those ones. For the EF external to the organization is outside of the organization's control. They will have the social and cultural influences and issues. Examples include things like political climate, codes of conduct, ethics, and perceptions. Yes, there is a very good relationship between business growth and political inclinations, or will I say economic, the political economic drive, right? There is a good relationship between business and these two aspects of politics and economy, all right? But no matter what happens, you don't determine when elections come up. We don't actually give government our schedule so that they plan with it. Government actually gives us their schedule so that we plan and run with it. We can't just wake up and say, today we are declaring public holiday. As a company, we wake up and say we are declaring public holiday, or we say next month we are going to be having national election, so it's going to be public holiday for everybody. As organizations, we don't have the capacity to do that. It is an external regulator that does that, and we have to follow it. All right, we have to follow it. So we also have codes of conduct. For example, in professional environments where codes of conduct are established by regulatory bodies, we as organizations follow those codes. We don't change the code. We can only create some ingenuity around the code to enhance performance within our organization. Not that we are going to work in deviation from the code. So the code of conduct, code of professional ethics, they are external to project environment or external to the organization. They will have legal restrictions, example like country or local laws, regulations related to security, data protection, business conduct, employment, and procurement. There are regulations that may abide in Nigeria that in Ghana it might not abide, and there are regulations that may abide in Ghana that in Nigeria they might not abide. Okay, there are regulations that may abide in Somalia, in Kenya, that are different from the Nigerian legal systems. Okay, so in essence, the legal system, irrespective of where you are operating, the legal system has a legal environment where it operates. And as a project manager, we must understand legal systems within legal environment and how they operate. That will help us in managing legal risks as they come towards our projects. All right. Now I have commercial databases, examples like benchmarking results, standardized cost estimating data, include industry risk study information, and then we have risk databases. They will have academic researches to include industry studies, publications, and benchmarking results also. All of these things are external to their EEFs, external to the environment. Then still on EFs external to the environment, we have government or industry standards, we have financial considerations. Financial considerations, example, currency exchange rates, interest rates, inflation rates, tariffs, and geographical locations, all right? How many of us know about the current CBN policy? I'm talking of those of us in Nigeria. I may not know about Ghana. Those of there is a current CBN policy that restricts businesses from accepting foreign deposits at the moment. How many of us know about that policy? If you know about the policy, can you type 1 in the chat room? It was actually a recent policy. It's a recent policy. If you know about the policy, type 1 in the chat room. Okay, so some of us are not aware. So if you are currently in Nigeria and you're running a business, there is a restriction from CBN now that you don't accept foreign exchange. I don't really know the reason, but you can accept. If it is family to family payment, you can the payment can go through. If it is person to person, that you know the payment can go through, but business purposes, no, it won't go through. Okay, so we have quite a number of dollars now hanging in the air Eh? And I'm still trying to understand the reason for that. Okay. And I said something during the COVID one night when we looked at a workshop where we looked at the future of work and future of businesses. And I said something. I said, if you don't have a business and you want to start a business, the best time to start it is now that the COVID is still swapping everyone up and down. After COVID, the business dimension will change. So a time is coming that before you register a website, you have to go to CAC or you go to NITAD to get approval before you register. A time will come before you accept international payment. You have to go to FIRS and obtain clearance, like what is happening now. You go to CBN and obtain clearance that you are now an international business, your position as an international business. So all of these things are government restrictions, financial restrictions that can hinder a project. So just assume that, and this naturally started, was it on September 19th? Or yes, around September 19th, 18th rather. So it started September 18th. So just imagine that someone just made a payment of $100 million to your account and you are to use that for a project. And all of a sudden CBN says you cannot receive the money, and you ask why. They say, because we are the why you cannot receive it. Okay. And that is wonderful. So that means it's going to affect the duration of your project. If care is not taken, your stakeholder may think you are playing pranks on him or her and could become a reputation issue. So you might now have to go to what they call the other one. You might have to go to EFCC to get fraud, what they call them, SCUM-L certificates to present to your stakeholder to prove to him or her that you are not purporting a wrong intention towards the project. So all of these things are external to the project environment, and they can affect your project. They can affect your project. Okay. For those of us in Ghana, we are currently running. We are currently working on setting up an office in Ghana. Now, when we try to make some inquiry, according to accreditation booklets they gave us, in Ghana, there is a law in Ghana that if you are external to Ghana, your business shouldn't be less than $1 million. Your business shouldn't be less than $1 million. So that means you're investing into Ghana. That is not a wrong policy, but it will limit smaller companies from coming in. And that also has a good way of encouraging the smaller companies within the country to flourish, then encouraging more of international investment rather than coming to drag the economy. All right. So all of that also can also affect projects. Okay, can also affect projects. So I was just looking at the schedule. I was like $1 million to register a company as a foreign company in Ghana. That's wonderful. All right. So many other countries will also have their own government or industry standard, and the $1 million is not really going to comprise of tax. It's not going to comprise of accreditation fees and all of that. So by the time you pay that, it's like a welcome. You are welcome to stay and have business in this environment without government intrusions or government interference. All right. So all of these things can affect projects in a long way. All right. And I always use this example. Those days I had experience with the telecom space. I'm not an engineer, but I've been privileged to work in the engineering setup. I've worked as an associate project manager in most construction companies and telecom companies. So one of the job we were supposed to do, that was around 2012. My boss called me then, the person I was serving under, the lead project manager I was serving under, he called me and told me that we are going to Zambia. I was quite elated. I was still a single then. So I was quite happy we are going to Zambia. I've never been to Zambia. So we were preparing to go to Zambia. And then I was just new to project management. I was just new to project management. So I didn't know much about all this EF, OPA, and all of that. I know about them theoretically, but practically I didn't really know about them. I didn't know how forceful they can impart a project. So that day I was cooking. Can't remember whether it was okra soup or vegetable soup I was cooking, but I was cooking anyway. And as I was cooking, they had already told me that we'll be leaving any moment. So visas and everything are on the pipeline for processing and all of that. So I was now wondering, who will I now give my soup to, since I'm going to be leaving any moment? And all of a sudden, this channel came up on the television, Zambia channel. So they were doing a program that looked like Who Want to Be a Millionaire? And you will see somebody will answer one question. They said the person has just gotten 1 million Zambies. Their currency is Zambi. So I was like, this country is very rich. Or they are just dashing money anywhere, anyhow. By the time you answer 2-3 questions, you already have 100 million Zambies. I called my project lead. I said, sir, this country is very rich. He said, how do I mean? I said, they are just dashing people money anyhow. I said, when I get to Zambia, I will definitely go and play this game. Okay. And something now occurred to me. He said, one, do you know their language? No, I don't know the language, although they speak English to some extent. Now, number two, what is the exchange rate of their currency? After I found the exchange rate of their currency to Nigerian Naira, as of that time, I was the one that told them, I said, I'm not available. Because if they give you 100 million Zambies in that place, you can come to Nigeria, it will not be up to 100,000 Naira. As of that 2012, I don't know what it could be like now. So I said, so what's the essence now? You go and spend all the, or maybe they told you that the project is 10 billion Zambies now, and your own fee is 2 million Zambies, and you came back to Nigeria, it's just 400 or 40,000 Naira. So what's the essence of that? Okay. And that also affected the project. I personally told them, sorry, I'm not available just because of the currency exchange rate. Okay, currency exchange rate. And there's one policy with that company, then the country you're working in, that's they pay you according to the rates of the company, of the country. If you're in Nigeria, they pay you Naira. If you're in Ghana, they pay you Cedi. If you're in Zambia, they pay you in Zambies. And that was not going to make too much sense to the risks involved. So I said I was not going. So that's how financial considerations can also affect projects. All right. Okay, so let me proceed. Then organizational process assets. Now, please, for those of us that want to get more understanding on OPAs, please, now let's look at it together and understand what OPAs really are. OPAs are the plans. OPAs are the processes. OPAs are the policies. OPAs are the procedures. OPAs are the knowledge bases specific to and used by the performing organization. They are specific to and are used by the performing organization. So these assets influence management of the project. What are the assets? The assets are the plans of the organization, the processes the organizations use for managing projects, the policies, the procedures, and the knowledge bases specific to the organization and used by the organization. Now, the OPAs are grouped into two categories. We have processes, policies, and procedures. Then we have the organizational knowledge bases. All right. OPAs include any artifact, practice, or knowledge from or all of the performing organizations involved in the project that can be used to execute or govern the project. The OPAs also include the organization's lessons learned from previous projects and historic information. OPAs may include completed schedules, risk data, and end value data. OPAs are inputs to many project management processes. Since OPAs are internal to the organization, the project team members may be able to update and add to the organizational process asset as necessary throughout the project. So from what we just said now, OPA is internal to the organization, not external. OPA is internal to the organization. So it's part of the thing that form the criteria of success for a project by the performing organization. Okay, OPA is part of the things. When you're writing your project proposal and you're trying to create your own distinguishing factor or differentiation from others, you actually present more of your OPAs. And this is going to include your project processes, your project policies or corporate policies, and procedures to the project. So if you have processes, policies, and procedures, you've already given a definite proposal, all right? Then you also use your knowledge, organizational knowledge basis, like the skills and competencies of the people are available, the knowledge of the work that has been done over time in your project, and the networks you have, as knowledge networks you have. If you're a member, if your organization is a member of a professional body or a professional network, that also forms part of the OPA. All right. Okay. Now, quickly, let's look at the project stakeholders as we proceed. But before we proceed, can we take 2 seconds break and then we'll be back. And in these 2 minutes, please, if you have a question, you can ask me now and we'll answer before we proceed. Just 2 minutes and we will proceed. If you have a question, kindly raise your hand and the coordinator will take you up from there, and then that will be it. Please, if you have a question, you have a comment, please, you can just raise your hand now. If you want to put it in the chat room, please, you can go ahead and put it in the chat room. Okay, so I'm handing over to Mr. Abraham now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Benito. All right, we have somebody's hands raised up here.
Okay, kindly unmute the person.
All right, please unmute your mic.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Yes, good morning.
Yeah. When you're talking about project spaces, you talked about the fast track. Sometimes I'm always in a project. So, when you're talking about government policies, there are some needs. Sometimes there may need that we need to model up of a phase, of a second phase with the first phase, even without finishing the first phase.
Yeah, that's right.
For instance, if we are at preliminary stage of documentation of titles, that's one stage. So you just find out that if you in Lagos State, there's some documents are not always come out, like building approval, for instance, are not coming out as expected.
Yes.
So and the clients, we want their product to be delivered. So in that case, we immediately start our this sub foundation what I call it. We just go to site immediately without minding the building approval to come out. Meanwhile, they affect us during the process because the lab card, the agencies will come all those things. But in this fast track, can we still categorize this one as fast tracking, or does it have different name entirely?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ridwan. Yes, I got your question. I'm not a builder anyway, but I have small knowledge of all of those issues of government and all of that. In Abuja, we have the ones we call AMAC. Okay, I will use my experience with AMAC as a case study to answer your question. Now, importantly, I want you to note something before you start fast tracking. Please note that the risks involved in the project or the phase you want to fast track is acceptable. So let's take, for instance, your building, and you've not received your building approval, but you've gone ahead maybe to do fencing. The regulatory agencies, they will not come to pull it down. they will actually come and give you a warning sign, and then you have to go and see them. So somehow is somehow acceptable. But before you could decide whether it's acceptable or not, please ensure that that environment where you're carrying out such project is government approved area, and you're not on a track where they will come and pull it out one day. So if you're on a track where they will not pull it out, you are in an approved place, and a place allocated by government, just as you've not gotten your building approval, the risk of pulling down is very low. But the risk of them coming to mark it and say, come and see us in our office is very high. That risk cannot pull down the building if you now go then and meet the necessary requirements as to building. Then another important thing also regarding to fast tracking. Once you notice that the risk is low and is acceptable, and then you are moving up to the next phase, it's also important that you know for sure. I'm using the building case study now as a matter of fact. Like in Abuja, if you are building, if they approve a building in a particular location, that automatically gives you a benchmark of what you should be building. If you go and design something outside of what is in that axis and your building, AMAC could come and tell you to reduce that and start afresh. So that is a bigger risk now, okay, because that is now a deviation of what they will approve. Okay, that will be a deviation from what they will approve. So before you start using fast tracking, please ensure that the risks involved are to the barest minimum and they are acceptable. I will repeat that again. Please, before you use fast tracking, ensure that the risks to the previous project are acceptable and to the barest minimum. And also, if your stakeholder is telling you continue, your work as a project manager is to let him know the consequences of what he wants you to do. And then if he agrees that you should go ahead and do that, if your stakeholder requirement allows you to continue with the risk, why not? That means the risk will not be transferred to you as a project manager. The risk will be transferred to the stakeholder. All right. So in that case, the risk is also acceptable to you as a project manager, so you can continue. So the consequences come out in the future. It is not your own burden to bear, but the stakeholder's burden to bear, because it's the one that approved that you should go on with the risk. So Mr. Ridwan, does that make any sense to you? Mr. Ridwan, does that make sense to you? If it does, please let me have that in the chat room.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think that's the question. That's the only question we can take for now. 2 minutes is already gone. So let's proceed to project stakeholders. Now, with that question that Mr. Ridwan asked, I think I will use that as a case study to bringing us to project stakeholders, right? Okay, stakeholders are very important group of people in project. So let's take that his building project now as a case study. So Lagos State government is a major stakeholder that can decide whether the project will go on or stop or even demolished. Then you have the project, what do you call it now? The project owner or the project sponsor who also wants the project to go on, and his influence can determine whether the project will go on or not. Now, if there are people within the environment, obviously there will be people within the environment who are where the project will take place. They are also going to be part of the project stakeholders, as their influence can also hinder the project execution. Then you now talk about your vendors, you talk about your suppliers, your contractors, your labor, and all of that. They all form, or project team, they all form the stakeholder team or the stakeholder forum. Now, let me take an instance in Abuja, a case like building, for instance. The project stakeholder moves us down to the village head. The village head and the village people, they are part of the stakeholder because they are the people that will sell land to you. They will sell the land first. This Abuja land is a very wonderful, if you want to buy land in Abuja, it's a very wonderful experience. So you go to the local government responsible for that. They will tell you whether the land is available for allocation or not. If the land is available for allocation, you go and pay to whoever that is the owner of the land, okay, and papers will be processed. Now, after you might have received your papers, you will now go and have a village meeting with the owners of the proposed owners of the land. Now, in Abuja, there are two owners of the land. Government is the primary owner, and the people are the secondary owner. So you go and meet them, and then you start negotiating how much your cash crops, your food crops, how much are they? Okay, and if you're not careful in Abuja, you can use equivalent amount of money you used to buy the land to make land settlement. And that is part of project inclusions, all right? Then after you might have done that, there are other fractions of people that may also come up, okay? Agents and all of them. You also said to those people. Now, just in an overview, you can see how many stakeholders are already involved just to buy land. Then when you now want to build, you have another bundle of stakeholders. When you want to commission, you have another, after you might have finished building and you're now living in the house, you have another category of stakeholders to face. So stakeholders have very great role to play in project management, whether you are in the service or product, manufacturing, construction, telecom, engineering, law, wherever you find yourself as a project manager, stakeholders play a very great role. How many of us here will agree with me that political campaigns are major projects during political eras, during elections, pre-election activities? How many of us will agree that elections are key projects? Political campaigns are key projects that will drive election practice. How many of us will agree? If you can attest to that, please help me type 1-1 in the chat room. Let me type 1-1 in the chat room. Okay, so if you are a politician now and you say project management does not concern you, you could be mistaken. Okay, because project management is as practical and realistic in a political campaign as we have in construction of a building, as we have in designing a software for a client, as we have in going to court to handle a case. Do I have any lawyer in this house? Do I have any lawyer? If I have a lawyer, please indicate. If I have a lawyer in this house, please, can you type your 1 into 4 places? Let your 1 be 4. If you're a lawyer, type 1 into 4 places. Okay. Maybe there is no lawyer. They have not come. Okay, so when you're going for a case, it's a project on its own, and there are stakeholders involved in it. Okay, there are stakeholders involved in it. So whichever field you find yourself, we have project management inclusions in them. Okay, we have project management inclusions in them. So now let's quickly look at what project stakeholders are all about, and then we'll proceed. Project stakeholders are individuals that are actively involved in the project or whose interests may be positively or negatively affected as a result of the project execution or completion. They may exert influence over the project and its results. The project stakeholders here, or the key stakeholders on every project, will include project manager, customer, performing organization, project team members, sponsors. Then we'll have other categories as internal and external stakeholders, owners, funders, sellers, contractors, and so on, dependent on your project. Then we'll have organizational influences to project. Organizational influences to project. The type of culture, systems, styles, and structures that exist in an organization can determine the success of a project, can determine whether a project will go on fast or it will be slow. All right. So let's quickly look at some of what we have here. Based on organizational systems, We have the project-based systems and the non-project-based systems. A project-based system derives revenue from performing projects for others. That's a project-based system. It derives revenue from performing projects for others. So we have that management by projects. Then we have the non-project-based system. Seldom have management system designed to support project needs. So if you have if you have organizations that are not non-project based, when you talk about projects and all of that, it doesn't really drive them. All right, it doesn't really drive them. But companies or organizations that are project based, when you talk about projects, they easily acknowledge the importance of project management practices, and they are willing to give you all the guide. But in a non-project based system, the more you try to work as a project in a projectized way, the system itself will not support you. Okay, it will not support you. So that's why I say it seldom have management system designed to support project needs. All right. Okay, then we have organizational cultures and styles also. They can also affect projects. When we talk about organizational culture, we have about 3 or 4 types of culture. We have the collaborative culture, we have the cultivating culture, we have the competency culture, and we have the control culture. The collaborative culture, the competency culture, the cultivating culture, and the control culture. All right. Although you will not find this in Project Management Book of Knowledge, but in organizational culture, we have these 4 kinds of culture. When you're running a project in a collaborative culture, you'll find that it's easy to move. There is always support. When you're working in a competency-based culture, it is like you should have the professional capacity to deal with this project. If you're working in a cultivating culture, it is an indication that though you might not have all the knowledge, so a support will be provided to you. If you're working in a control culture, you don't come with your own way. You have to follow the organization's way of doing it. All right, so culture has its own way of affecting projects and the project team. All right. So organizational cultures and styles are reflected in shared values, norms, beliefs, expectations, policies, procedures, authority, relationships, and so on. For example, a project manager with a highly participating style is likely to encounter problems in a rigidly hierarchical organization, while a project manager with an authoritarian style will be equally challenged in a participative organization. So this kind of cultures and style can affect where there is conflict between the two organizations. Where there is conflict between organizational culture and performing organization culture, there will be an issue. Okay. Now, according to project management, we have 3 types of organizational structure. So we have the functional structure, we have the projectized structure, and we have the metric structure. That's according to project management. So like the key word there is functional for functional structure. So in a functional structure, you have major managers, functional managers dealing with the project. So project managers have to take on more of a support role to the functional roles. All right. In a projectized structure, the functional roles be a support to the project management team. Then in a matrix structure is further divided into 3. We have the strong matrix, which is typical to a projectized structure. Then we have a weak matrix, which is typical to a functional structure. Then we have a hybrid matrix or a balanced matrix, which is a combination of the weak and the strong together. That's to say, there's a blend of communication as to what the functional management can do and what the projectized team will also do. All right, so that is a little about what I will say about that. Now, if you from this diagram, you could see the little explanation that in a functional organization, project coordination lies around the functional manager. So it could be the sales manager, marketing manager, human resource manager, project manager also can also serve as a functional manager. So the coordination of projects revolve around the functional managers. All right, so it doesn't really revolve around a particular department, okay, as you can see here, but rather it involves involve separate functional managers coming to put their heads together to get the work done. Then you have the projectized organization. So you see in a projectized organization, coordination is focused on the project team or the project department. Coordination is focused on the project team or the project department. All right. So you have the project manager being the sole authority there, and then the project team members being support or being part of the team. Then you have the matrix. The matrix, you now see a combination of staff from the different perspectives. So you could see a staff from a functional department, another staff from another functional department, another staff from another functional department, then making up the project team. So you have the project manager, then you have the other members of the project team. In this case, the project manager here is not absolutely in charge, but the project team. So there could be a 50-50 share rate of power and authority, or there must be a level of power and authority participation involved. Okay, so in this case, the coordination is done by the hybrid team. All right, the participation is done by the hybrid team. All right, quickly, let's look at key general management skills. But before we look at key general management skills, though my time is ticking very fast, but at the same time, I would like to be sure that we understood these structures. Please, if you understood these structures, the functional, the projectized, and the metrics, please help me type 1-1 in the chat room. If you understood them, please help me type 1-1 in the chat room. If you did not understand, please also call my attention so that I can go back to it. Okay, I'm seeing a question from Abubakar Haman Zuberu. Say, can you explain why manufacturing and financial services are non-project based? Okay, we are not saying that they are non-project based. We are just saying we could find examples in such areas. Okay, we could find examples of non-project based systems in manufacturing and financial systems. And what it means is that there is already a sequence of operations that they do virtually every day. Okay, so you don't alter it. Like in a bank, tailoring services every day. So you don't alter it. Depositing, withdrawing money, like every day, you don't alter it. So it's just a static operation. In the manufacturing field also, they have some forms of static operations. Let's say manufacturing of sachet leather. Okay, they keep doing that every day. So it doesn't really, it's not a projectized system, but rather it is not an operations-based system. All right. So Mr. Abubakar, did you understand that? Chinonso Ukaku, please, can you be specific? Can you be specific on what you don't understand, please? Aisha Salisu, can you also be specific on what you don't understand so that I can, all right, thank you so much, Mr. Abubakar, for confirming to have heard. Okay. Please, Aisha and Aishat and Chinom, so please be specific on the area you don't understand, then I can be able to go ahead with that. All right, thank you so much for understanding. Okay, quickly, let's look at key general management skills that project manager should pay attention to. Okay, Aisha, you don't understand the functional organization. Okay, in a functional organization, managers are typically the ones responsible for the project. So in a functional organization, the project manager serves as a support. His work is to support the functional team to get their work done. So he does more work of a consultant to a functional organization. Do you get that? He's not absolutely responsible for the project. His work here is like a helping hand. in a functional structure. But in a projectized structure, he is the one completely responsible for the project. So in such case, the functional department now become a helping hand to him. Okay, the functional become a helping hand to him. Now, in a matrix system that is balanced, there is a mix of functional and projectized. So there is a level of what power is attributable to the functional managers and one attributable to the project manager and his team. Okay, so I'm seeing another question here. Aishat, please, did you understand that? Please, if you understand that, please let me see that in the chat room. It says, so which area of the financial system can we projectize? Okay, so it's left for your organization to know which area they can projectize. But essentially, more of the projectized areas, you see, marketing is projectized because though it looks like you're doing the same thing every day, but you find new approaches to doing it. You go finding new new customers entirely. All right. Then communications also can be projectized. Okay, communications in the banking industry can be projectized. Then dispensing of money transfer or money management can also be projectized, as we can see today. Those of them in the IT, in the banking industry, they are every day working on the apps. So if you get to have updates, like update your app, and that is to tell you that a new project phase or a new project output has been released. So there are so many aspects of the banking industry that can be projectized. Customer service can also be projectized, as we can see in most banks today, like GT Bank in Nigeria, for a case. They've projectized their customer service, that when you come to customer service now, is not as it used to be before. Okay, even in their tailoring, they also projectized it. So you don't come and deposit money as it were used to be. So what did they do? You can now deposit money through ATM. That's part of it. That's a new innovation, right? You can now deposit money through barcode scanning, or what do they call that kind of banking? Is it barcode banking or what? So that is also part of the new projects coming in. So there are several. In fact, every aspect of the banking industry, of the manufacturing industry, can be projectized. Okay, can be projectized. All right. Okay. So can you explain more on project coordinator? Okay. Jamil Akimade, project coordinator or project coordination. Please, there are two different things there. A project manager can be a project coordinator in a projectized structure. But in a functional structure, a project manager is not a coordinator, because he's not the one completely in charge of the project. He's a helping hand. So what do you call it now? In a functional system, we could look at the project manager as a project expediter. He's a helper. He's not the real person in the coordination of the project. And also, when we start looking at things like project management office, all right, in a functional system can set up a project management office where they now have a project management officer who serves on administrative role to project coordination. So if we have a project management office in a functional structure, the project management officer becomes the project coordinator. If we have a project management officer in a projectized structure, he is not a coordinator in this case. He is a helper in a projectized system. So project coordination could place different levels of authority to either the project manager or the project management officer or the project functional manager, based on the structure that is available in the project. Okay. All right. Thank you, Roslyn. Please, Jamil, if what I said made any sense to you, please, can you confirm in the chat room so that I'll be sure? Please, if it makes sense to you, kindly confirm. Okay, key general management skills for project managers. We have the leading, communicating, negotiating, problem solving, influencing the organization, and all of that. Remember, we started this class with emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is also a very key skill in management of projects. So every project manager should have good leadership skills, and that's why we encourage people to go for executive leadership development. Every leader should have, or every project manager should have, good and excellent practical communication skills at all levels: written, oral, listening, speaking, reporting, briefing, meeting, conferencing. Should have very good communication skills. Then every project manager must be a very good negotiator. Please don't mind people that will only tell us that project managers are stingy. We are not stingy. We are trying to stick to the scope, to the time, and the budget. We already have constraints. Okay. If you're not a very good negotiator as a project manager, you will be losing out a lot. You'll be losing out a lot. Okay. You'll be losing out a lot. And emotional intelligence always gives you some kinds of intuition. All right. So let's assume that you have a particular procurement to make, and you sent the procurement manager, and the procurement manager returned and told you that that particular facility or machine or whatever that was to be procured was going to be for 500 million. And right within you, there is something telling you that it can be lesser. Maybe the thing is telling you that it should be about 400 million. Please go ahead and negotiate that thing. Okay, go ahead and negotiate it. And permit me to say, don't ever feel bad on negotiating. It only, we get better by practice. You know, I am very fond of going to market. All right, I like going to market. So whenever I get to the market, sometimes of those days, you hear things like, this man, you can price like a woman. You even price tomatoes. So those statements shouldn't be touting statements. There should be an indication to tell you that, yes, your skills are improving. Okay, your skills are improving. My wife will always say that she prefers me going to market with her to buy things than her going alone, because what she will buy 100 naira, I may end up buying it 30 naira. Okay, dependent on how I negotiate with the people. So negotiation is very important. And there is something I want to tell us about negotiation. Everything is negotiable, from scope to time to contract agreements, finance. Everything is negotiable as far as project management is concerned. So we must pay attention to improving our negotiation skills. Don't just be like some of us, they say we are happening persons. They tell you 1 million, you just bring out and pay. 2 million, you bring out and pay. 3 million, no negotiation. Provided is accommodated in your budget, just bring out and pay. No, you have to negotiate. The more you negotiate, the more profit you have. Okay. Then we also need to increase our problem-solving skills and also increase our ability to influence the organization. That still boils down to emotional intelligence. Okay. Ability to influence the organization, ability to influence our team members. Okay. Ability to influence our team members. So it's important we pay attention to improving our emotional intelligence. Let me ask, the people that were in the first class for emotional intelligence, you are very much on point. I appreciate you for coming. Now, if you missed emotional intelligence class, please, can you raise your hand up? If you missed emotional, so that will direct you where you will get it. If you missed emotional intelligence class, can you raise your hand up? All right. Okay, so if you missed emotional intelligence class, please go to the YouTube. Please, Mr. Abraham, can you please place the YouTube link in the chat room so that they can visit the YouTube. Emotional intelligence class is IPM General Induction, the first lecture you will see on September 19th on the platform. We've not really renamed it. So please kindly visit there and take about 1 hour to listen to emotional intelligence class. It will help you quite a lot. Okay, it will help you quite a lot. And that's that's key Emotional intelligence is key to project management. I often get project managers complaining almost every now and then, complaining about their staff, complaining about project stakeholders, complaining about virtually everyone that is called human in the project team or project environment. Those things can be well managed by your good understanding, development, and practice of emotional intelligence. And should you have need to have project relationship officer, I will encourage you to get someone who is emotionally intelligent or someone who has the necessary competencies in emotional intelligence. It will help a long way in managing project relationships, especially those of us that do community projects, okay? That you now have to do project relations, community relations, and all of that. If you must get a community development manager or community relations manager, let the person have good knowledge and good practice of emotional intelligence. It will help quite a lot, all right? So if you missed the class on emotional intelligence, please visit the YouTube link that Mr. Abraham has posted. Ensure to subscribe to that link or subscribe to the channel, and then every other class, you will get them on notification as soon as they are published. And all of the classes are actually live. So you can always go back there and either download or replay according to your discretion. All right. Then quickly, let's look at the socioeconomic environmental influences on projects. We have the standards and regulations, we have the internationalization, we have cultural influences, then we have the socioeconomic environmental sustainability. I think I've somehow explained all of this when we are talking about EF, all right? We talked about government standards and regulations, how they affect projects. We also talked about the international cases like exchange rate, difference in time zones, difference in tax policies and all of that, difference in languages and all of that. They also affect projects. Then you have cultural influences that also affect projects. Okay, there are things that you can natively do in Nigeria and nobody will talk about it. If you do it in another place, you will be jailed. Let's take, for instance, in some countries like Colombia, that they have, is it topless policy, so you can go naked on the street. And I know there are other countries that approved some kind of funny laws. Now, if you ever bring those things to Africa, they will use cane and deal with you. You will say they trampled on your rights. Your right is only to the country that created that right for you. In a country where such right is not approved, you don't dare try it. Okay, so will you the social laws or cultural laws? You can't compare North Korea and Colombia and some of those countries around Colombia. Okay, you can't compare those countries with not. If you do the things you do in Colombia, you do it in North Korea, you will not be jailed. You will just die. Okay, I was reading about North Korea and I was seeing very wonderful things about them. So there is a possibility that virtually everyone in North Korea will have this similar characteristics. Okay, similar characteristics because of what? Cultural influences. All right, cultural influences. And then we have the socioeconomic environmental sustainability. Every project should be built towards sustainability. There should be an inclusion of environmental impact assessment to ascertain the level of sustainability, environmental sustainability before the project is approved. All right. Okay. So quickly, let's look at management processes. We've actually dealt with 2 classes this morning. This is the 3rd class. We've dealt with the introduction. We've dealt with project management context, which we just finished. And then we are going to project management processes. Okay. Please, if I have any question, please put it in the chat room. I will take care of that. And please make sure you take your attendance before you leave the class. We are about rounding up right now. The class is about rounding up because we are approaching 9 o'clock. Project management processes. We'll look at the project processes, process groups, process interactions, mapping of project management processes. And I would like you to pay attention in these areas. Just follow me. Project management process. A project management process is a series of interrelated activities or actions that are performed to achieve a pre-specified set of product results or services, which we could in one sentence call, or one word call deliverables. All right, so project processes interrelated actions and activities that are performed to achieve a pre-specified set of product results or services, or in a keyword, deliverables. According to Project Management Book of Knowledge, the 6th edition, we have 49 project management processes, and we are going to look at all of them in this class. Between now and November 7th, we would have completely dealt with each and every one of them with practical case studies that relates to them. All right. So project management is accomplished through the 49 management processes according to the Project Management Book of Knowledge. All right, the 6th edition. Okay, now we have categories of project processes. We have two categories. We have the project management processes and we have the product-oriented processes. The project management processes describe, organizes, and complete the work of the project, while the product-oriented process specify and create the project product. Okay, so the two are similar but a little different. So while the project management is initiating, organizing, and executing the work, the product-oriented is telling us how the product should be at the end of the day. So one is giving us scope description as to the product, one is giving us scope description as regards to the work to be done in the project. So the one that is giving us scope description as regards to the work to be done in the project to get the project done is what we are referring to as the project management process. Now, the one that is giving us the scope description as what the product should look like after the project is done is the product-oriented processes. Now, let's quickly look at the project management process groups. We'll have the initiating process group, planning process group, executing process group. We'll also have the monitoring and control process group, and we'll have the closing process group. In the initiating process group, it defines and authorizes the project or a project phase. So is in the initiation that will have the project goals, vision, objectives, and that is being agreed upon by both parties of stakeholders and project team members. Then in the planning phase, it defines and refines project objectives and plans the course of action required to attain the objective and scope of the project. Then we'll have the executing process group, which integrates people and resources to carry out the project management plan for the project. The monitoring and control process group involves measures and measuring and monitoring progress to identify if the correction actions can be taken to meet project objectives. And the closing phase formalizes acceptance of the product, service, or result and brings the project or a project phase to an orderly end. So if you look at all of these things, they are working iteratively, all right? They are working interdependently, all right? So you see that from the triangle. You see that from the circle here. You have from initiation, you go to planning, planning to execution, execution to closure. It goes back that way. Why monitoring and control is working as a bedrock or a foundation to all of them. That's to say that in initiation, there is monitoring and control. In project planning, there is monitoring and control. In execution, there is monitoring and control. And in closure, there is monitoring and control. And I'll quickly go through each of these things. Then we can call it a day till we meet again by 1. Is it 1 o'clock today? The next class? Okay. The process groups are linked by the results they produce. The result or the outcome of one often becomes an input to another. As the project progresses, plans are continually updated prior to a next phase. This is known as the rolling wave planning. Continuously updating is planning on the move, or planning as the project is progressing is called rolling wave planning. So there is room for continuous improvement. There is room for updates as the project progresses. That continuous update will, as we progress, we'll start hearing things like change log, change request forms, change updates, and all of that. All of those things are now embedded in the plan through the rolling wave planning approach. Okay, through the rolling wave planning approach. All right. Okay, so I will quickly go through each of these things, and then we'll be rounding up. Okay. I see here that someone say I can see any chart. Slide is static. Please, if the slide is static in your end, please be sure that because it's moving from here. Please, if the slide is moving from your end, you can see on my screen now overlap of process groups. Please type 1 in the chat room. Please, attendance will be shared by 8:30. Attendance will be shared by 8:30. Okay, so we have 2 minutes to attendance by 8:30. All right, so quickly, let's look at this project process group, the overlap. All right, please, I will need you to write this down because it's not contained in your manual. I will need you to write it down. In project relationships, we have 3 types of project phase relationship. 3 types of project phase relationship. We have the overlapping, we have the sequential, and we have the iterative. Please, I will need you to write them down because they will help us in understanding this. We have the overlapping relationship, we have the sequential relationship, and we have the iterative relationship. Okay, someone asked the question today about phase gates. So you see this particular diagram. This diagram shows different phases in a project, right? So from each of these, you can see where one is beginning and ending. So where is beginning is the phase entry, where is ending is the phase gate. Okay, and this is the same thing as what we have here. The linear diagram is same thing as what we have on this cyclic diagram. All right, so if you notice, initiation starts from a point and closes, and this ends at the point. Then planning starts from a point and closes where closure begins. Then monitoring and controlling is from beginning to the end. Execution is from beginning to the end. So execution is from beginning to the end. Closure begins where planning stops. Planning stops where closure begins. Initiation starts and stops at the point, and then others follow. So this kind of diagram is telling us the level of relationship that exists, which ones are overlapping, which ones are iterative, which ones are sequential. So from here, we could categorically say that planning and closing, they are sequential because planning will finish before closing will begin. Then planning and other processes from here are all overlapping, that they can be carried out at the same time. Then you see that others also are overlapping. Then you see that controlling, monitoring and control is iterative. It starts from beginning to the end. So it's not specific to any of the phases, it is to all. So it starts from beginning to the end. It starts from beginning to the end. It starts from beginning to the end. All right, so that is important to note. I would like to know if there is any question to this particular case. Then I will be rounding up. Is there any question? Because I would like us to understand this area. Please, if there is any question, kindly put in the chat room or raise your hand. The attendance will be shared in a moment, and then we'll be going to take our rest. Okay, so the attendance is already shared. Okay, so I'm not seeing any hand up and I'm not seeing any question. So maybe we'll continue. All right, process interactions. How do project processes interact? Project processes interact through input, tools, and techniques and output. We are going to explain more of this when we'll get to project management processes, right? Okay, now quickly, how does this whole, what are the steps involved in each of these process groups? What are the steps involved in each of these process groups? Please pay attention to this place time may not permit me to explain and re-explain it, but when we come back in the afternoon, we can just touch it before we round up and go to the next class. All right, project initiation. In project initiation, what are the steps involved? There must be identification of business problem opportunity. Then from that, we develop a business case. From that, we do a feasibility study. Then from that, we establish terms of reference. From that, we'll go to appointing a project team. Then we'll set up project management office, and then we'll perform a phase review. There must be first, before any project is carried out, there must be an identified problem that the project is set to handle. Then there must be a business case. Business case is an information to justify the real need of the project. The project, do we really need to do it? It is a business case that will justify that. So all the importance, all the benefits, all the value propositions of the project will guide us as to justify it, whether the project is really necessary or not. So there must be well-defined objectives, well-defined values, well-defined every benefit that the project will bring. That then we now take those values to the marketplace to make a feasibility study, whether the stakeholders we are producing those things for, the customers and people who want to do with them for, whether they will appreciate those business case studies that we have brought up. The level of appreciation that your case study will present will go a further way to justify your business case study, whether it's going to be adopted or not. Then from that, from the feasibility, you can now establish a term of reference. Why should you definitely go into this? What are the most important things that your feasibility study established as the major reason why this to be done? That should become the terms of reference. Then from there, you can develop your project team or appoint a project team, set up your project management office, and then perform a phase review. A case study is represents an optimum use of information used to judge whether the project is and remains desirable and achievable, and therefore worthwhile investing in. Developing a business case, a detailed definition of problem, opportunity, and analysis of the potential solution options are available for each option. Potential benefits, costs, risks, and issues are documented. A preferred solution is selected and agreed upon. It is this benefit, potential benefits, costs, risk, and issues that you're going to find out from feasibility study, whether they are realistic, okay, whether the market conditions are realistic to the things you are stating in your business case. All right. The business case is approved by the project sponsor, and the required funding is allocated to proceed with the project. The key philosophies in business case: it must drive the project. No satisfactory business case, no project. It must be maintained through the project. Should justification or business need disappear during the project, stop the project. Then we'll now talk about the feasibility study. Remember, the business case gives you the benefits, the cost implication, the risk, and all of that. Then feasibility is taking you to the marketplace to find out whether the solutions you're profiling really exist, and whether the solution will actually solve the problem that have been identified, and whether the solution will provide the necessary benefits to the stakeholders or to the clients involved. All right. So the purpose of the study is to assess the likelihood that a particular solution option will achieve the benefits outlined in the business case. This is very, very important. I will need you to understand this. There is a difference between feasibility report and business case. Business case is you develop business case before you go for feasibility study. You don't do feasibility study and then come back to do a business case. Your feasibility study can help you modify your business case as regards to the benefits, the risk, and possible solutions that can be used, right? But you need to have something you can use as a blueprint before you enter the market to start doing market survey or market research. All right, that's what we're talking about. To investigate whether the forecasted costs are achievable, risks are acceptable, and or any likely issues are avoidable. That's why you are going on with the business feasibility study. Note, after the solution has been agreed, funding allocated, and the feasibility study performed, a project is formed. Now I have establishing terms of reference, which is what we call the charter. The charter should contain the vision, the objective, the scope, the deliverable, the organizational structure, and the business case. The vision, the objective, the scope, the deliverable, organizational culture, and the business case. All right. Then appointing a project team. Once the terms of reference has been produced, the project manager is appointed. He or she documents a detailed job description for each role and appoints a human resource to each role and based on his or her relevant skills and experience. Then the project office is then set up, which can be physical office or a virtual office. A successful project office environment consists of location, that's templates, methodologies, processes. Then we'll have tools like computers, machines, equipment, satellite, and all of that. Okay, so before we move from initiation to planning, there must be a check. There must be a check. All right, there must be a check. Now, for the project planning, a detailed planning to ensure that the activities in the execution phase of the project are properly sequenced, resourced, executed, and controlled. It means, or it is a means of defining and refining objectives and selecting the best of the alternative courses of action to attain the objective that the project was undertaking to address. Now, planning sessions always use brainstorming as their primary tool for effective planning. Now, what are the things involved in planning? Because of time, I want to stop this class by 8:45. So because of time, I'm just going to read through this. When we come back in the afternoon, we'll look at them once again. Practically, we'll look at them and how they apply. So in project planning, what do we need? We need to create a project plan, create a resource plan, create financial plan, create a quality plan, create a risk plan, create an acceptance plan, create a communication plan, create a procurement plan, and then we'll create a plan for contract suppliers. Then we'll also perform a phase review before we go to the execution phase. All right. So you have a plan, project plan, resource plan, financial, quality, risk, acceptance, communication, procurement, and suppliers. Then you go to review. Please, it's important to note that communication is important at all levels of this whole project planning. All right. If you sign your attendance, please don't go anywhere. If you sign your attendance, please don't go anywhere. Please, I will repeat most of the things when we come back in the afternoon because of time. And if you've not signed your attendance, kindly put 1-1 in the chat room so that the attendance will be reshared again. If you've not done your attendance, please kindly put 1-1 in the chat room so that the attendance could be reshared again. All right. In developing a project plan, identify, create, and agree on a work breakdown structure, a WBS, a hierarchical set of phases, sequenced activities, and tasks to be undertaken on the project. The WBS is accomplished by defining the scope of the project and breaking down the work down into components that can be scheduled and estimated and easily monitored and controlled. Allocate resources to each activity and task and assemble a detailed project schedule. Okay, assemble detailed project schedule. Please, if you've not taken your attendance, please put 1-1 in the chat room so that the attendance can be reshared. Okay, please ensure to take attendance. We might not take time to answer more questions after the class because there is another class I need to catch up with by 9 o'clock. So I may not stay here till 9 o'clock, please. So most of the questions, I will answer them in the afternoon because I will still be the one to take the afternoon session. Thank you so much. Thank you for understanding me. Okay, then developing a resource plan. It involves detailed resource allocation and then resource allocation and assessment to identify types of resources, whether they are going to be human resources, equipment, or materials. When we come to the project, Microsoft project professional that will be using as a practical, we will understand more on how to schedule these resources. Okay, which one will go for cost, which one will go for material, which one will go for work, and all of that. We'll understand that more in the practical asset. And please, for those of us that already have our materials, please ensure to download the Microsoft project from the website and install it. You could get any other project, Microsoft Project Professional, but for the sake of easy learning, we use Microsoft Project 2007 to teach, then you can we can then upgrade to 2010 or 2016 as the case may be. But by default, we use 2007 to teach here. So please, if you don't have 2007, please download the one that is associated to the study material you paid for. And also, importantly, please download with your system, not your tablet, not your phone. Download with your system, not your tablet, not your phone, please. Okay, because it is a desktop software, not a phone app, not a tablet app. All right. And if you download to your phone and you try to send to your system, most often it scatters the whole arrangement. That setup becomes difficult. So total quantities of each resource type, roles, responsibilities, and skill set of all human resource items, purposes, and specification of equipment. All of these things are included in the human resource plan, or the resource plan rather. Then items, purposes, specification of material resources are all identified. Note, there are committed and proposed resources. I think we've dealt with that today. Then developing financial plan, identify the quantity of money required for each stage of the project cost estimation, quantify the total cost of labor, like human resource, and then equipment and material. That will be cost budgeting. Assemble an expense schedule, an outline of forecast spending versus actual spending. Sorry, forecasted spending versus actual spending rather. Then on the quality, define what quality means in terms of project, list clear and unambiguous quality targets for each deliverable, outline a plan of quality activities which will assure the customer that quality targets will be met. That is quality assurance plan. Identify the techniques to be used to control the actual level of quality of each deliverable as it is built. That will be quality control. And then developing the risk plan, outline foreseeable project risk, outline set of actions to be taken, formulated to both prevent each risk from occurring and reduce the impact of the risk should it happen. Please, whenever you hear us talk about risk this way, we are most often referring to the negative risks. That does not mean that there are no positive risks. In project risk management, our assignment is to identify both positive and negative risks. Then we increase the occurrence of positive risk and reduce the occurrence of negative risks. That's all we want to achieve. So in risk planning, you identify risks and then you put up risk response planning, then you put up risk monitoring and control. All right. We will take time to discuss all of this in detail in the 10 knowledge areas, because each of these components are exemplified in the 10 knowledge areas. Then we'll have developed the acceptance plan. Acceptance plan outlines or provides and outlines the criteria for obtaining customer acceptance, assembles a schedule of acceptance reviews within which customers' acceptance will be sought, using an acceptance form to review the deliverables produced and the level of customer satisfaction. All right. The bottom line here is that each deliverable must meet or exceed customers' requirement. But before it exceeds customers' requirement, please be sure that you're not gold plating to avoid rework and rejected work. All right. Then creating communication plan. Here, identify how each of the stakeholders should be informed, identify the types of information to be distributed, identify the methods of distributing information to stakeholders, identify the frequency of information and the responsibilities of each person in the project team for distributing information to regular stakeholders. I think one thing is missing here. You first of all need to identify the stakeholders before you identify how you're going to get them informed. You have to identify the stakeholders first, then you now have to identify how to communicate with them. Okay, then creating the procurement plan, it provides a detailed description of the project, of the products, that is goods and services to be procured from suppliers, provides justification for procuring each product externally and not internally from team members, provide a schedule for procurement, identify the process of selection of a preferred supplier, and that will bring us to the tender process, and this will be discussed in the afternoon. Identify the process for the actual order and delivery of the procured products, which is the procurement process. Okay, for the sake of time, please permit me, I'm going to call it a day from here. So when we'll come back in the afternoon, we continue with the tendering process. But I will definitely we'll have to go through the the planning phase again before we conclude this foundation class. All right. Please, I'll be handing over to the coordinator right now. In the next 5 minutes, we'll be rounding up. And then if you're doing a safety class or if you're interested in safety, you can still join us in the HAC class, which is starting by 9 o'clock. So in the next 5 minutes, we should be out of here. Please, Mr. Abraham, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Benito. I hope we enjoyed the class today. We shall be having the next class by 1 p.m. knowledge area, which is the project integration management by 1 p.m. So please, let's endeavor to be in the class by 1 p.m. And again, if you have not filled the attendance sheet, please ensure you click the link in the chat room and fill the attendance sheet accordingly so that it can be recorded. So please, we are going to see us by 1 p.m. Nigerian time. I think by Ghana time should be 12 p.m.
Yes, 12 noon.
Or 12 noon, sorry.
That's
so
right.
Please, by 1 p.m. we should convene in the class. Let's try and be early to class, please, so that we don't start asking questions about something we did not, because we didn't come early. All right. So
all right,
please have a wonderful.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Right,
Abraham. Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone. Please, is there anyone here who would like to make payment for materials? If you would like to make payment for materials, and those of us that paid material and exam fee, please, you are entitled to 4.5 gig free data, or for those of us that have already cleared their payment. So while filling the attendance, please indicate your number where your data should be sent to. All right. So if you wish to make payment, please, the account number is displayed on the screen, and also the things to pay for also apply in the screen. From Ayodeji Ogunode, we are not saying you should downgrade. We're only saying that what we will use to teach is 2007 for easy manageability. Then we can then proceed to 2010 and then other newer versions, okay? So don't delete what you have. Just get 2007 and install. That's all. All right. Thank you so much. And God bless you. Real good. See you by 1 p.m. or 12 noon Ghana time. See you then.